if I them, and what they think name, doing sports announcing.
So, let's get started.
But this is the best way to do it actually because my speaker on my thing is not that loud.
All right, good. We are back. The gentleman next to me, which is no stranger to most of you, is Mr. Enrico Woolford. Enrico, welcome again to CWS as it is.
Thank you very much, Selwyn.
My brother, how are you feeling today after the general elections, after the swearing in of President David Granger? What is going through your mind?
How I feel excellent. I feel elated. I feel overjoyed, not because a party won, but because a party that is different from the previous party that was in government won. What it tells me is that democracy won. The democratic process works in the country. When a lot of people felt that the democratic process, really cannot work for Guyana because of the ethnic polarization, it has been able to work in spite of that.
Why is looking to the future important to you, and why should the nation go down that path, Enrico?
Of course, we are going nowhere except into the future. Um, we can't go back into the past, as much as a lot of people would like us to do that. The only way to go is forward. And you cannot go forward if you keep looking back while you're going forward. You're going to bump into something. And the other difficulty is if you think by looking into your rear view mirror all the time, that you are going to get somewhere. A rear view mirror essentially is to check to see who's overtaking you, not really to see where you've come from. And therefore, we need to keep our eyes on the road ahead and work towards dealing with the issues that are ahead of us.
Were you surprised the coalition won?
I was not, because the coalition won ever since 2011. The people had spoken since then. And the people had said, look, based on the record of the People's Progressive Party, based on what then President Jagdeo did, they were not satisfied that he or his party should have the majority in the National Assembly. The difficulty is our Constitution has this constitutional quirk that does not allow for a coalition or a joining of forces, the coalescing of forces after the election. So it was therefore imperative for any party in dealing with the People's Progressive Party to coalesce before. And it was not a gamble, as everybody is trying to say. It was exactly what happened again, with increased numbers, yes, but it is still a one-seat majority. What is bothersome about this, Selwyn, and all the others who are listening, is that there are still people entrenched in the People's Progressive Party who still believe that the party does not need reform. If the then opposition party, the PNC, needed reform years ago, if other parties like the United Force needed reform, what is it about the People's Progressive Party that it thinks that it is the only party that will continue to operate in the same manner? The issue of being cheated or defeated has been there ever since that party started. When I was a little child in 1964, I would have been 7. The party talked about being cheated and defeated. In 1968, agreed there were electoral issues. The party again talked about being cheated and what have you. What it is doing is setting itself up for the 2020 elections with regard to how people perceive anybody other than that party, anybody else, even if the URP or Mark Benchup's party had won the election, the playbook would have been the same. The Western powers got together to throw us out. These other people got together to throw us out. Um, we were cheated. Votes were taken. Dead people voted. Statements of poll were inserted. But they are not saying why, based on their record, the persons felt that they ought to leave office. It is as simple as that.
Some are questioning the narrowness of the margin. What are your thoughts on that?
Why do we go into a game and then question whether or not the person won by what they won? What they won. I mean, it's silliness. You
Yes.
go into when you play cricket. If you win by 1 run, you win. If Usain Bolt wins by 0.00 whatever of a second, he wins. If a horse runs a race and wins by a nose, it wins. So one does not have to question the narrowness of anything. That is the game of politics. Now, whether you take all when you win is the other matter, specifically with regard to a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multicultural society as Guyana is. And what we need to do is to work on our democratic institutions, work on the systems that are in place to ensure that our democracy continues to function and function very well. But it is not, democracy is a mockery, is a travesty. If the whole idea is for you to have one political group based on an ethnic plurality, try to put hegemony into place and to take that position that we will always win once we are united as one particular group of people. That is nothing short of racism. That is what it is. And one should call it for what it is.
The results took some time in coming out from GCOM. Why do you think that was delayed for so long?
Unfortunately, precisely where I began, in terms of our past, we've had issues with regard to how elections are run. And I always remember when one side was being accused of rigging elections and having dead voters and overseas voters and what have you. My mom called out to a political leader of that particular side and said, you know, Chetty said that you guys, you the PNC, rigged the elections. And that political leader said to my mom, he who complains about it most knows how to do it best. Which tells you that both sides are conscious of the ability to take political power without due process, without ensuring that it is fair, it is clear, it is transparent, and it is free from fear and intimidation. And free from fear and intimidation are very important from the point of view that you must not feel that because you are living in a community where it is 80% of one particular ethnic group, that you have to vote with that group because, oh, somebody will think, or 100%, somebody will think you are the one who did it. What's the purpose of a secret ballot? So to answer your question precisely, is that because of our past, we have put in all these checks and balances to ensure that our system, our democratic system, works. It is a little time consuming. Voting is done at the place of poll. All the statements of poll are signed by all the polling agents and the election officials there, and some of the observers make a note of what is there. Then all of that is transmitted to the center and to the various districts and then to the center and then counted. But if there is a mistake, it has to go all the way back. And Guyana is not a small country. I don't know why people think that it is. Guyana is a little smaller than the state of New York, the entire state of New York, as big as Idaho, bigger than Belgium by far, you know? So we, and as big as the United Kingdom. The difference is we do not have the telecommunication infrastructure. We do not have the road and other infrastructure, even air infrastructure, water infrastructure to move things very quickly. And therefore, one, you got to look for the scamps and the thieves and the culprits. And as I said, those who cause the fire are the first people to come with the hose.
Yesterday, May 16th, swearing in of President David Granger. What was going through your mind as this event took place?
It was a lot of emotion, Selwyn. It is a lot of emotion. Because as a journalist who has worked here for a long time, worked under all the presidents really, from Burnham right through to President Granger, one realized the impact of the media and doing proper media work and ensuring that our elected representatives are held accountable for what they do. I felt very, very strongly that the media, the independent, private, fearless, and free media were able to play a part, not a small part, a part in ensuring that our democratic system worked, that people understood that you can change elected representatives and you should not be wedded to this idea that ethnicity is the reason that you should vote. And let me make it clear, from both sides of the major parties, there was some amount of ethnic voting. One can see that pattern. But in terms of why those who were being accused of being corrupt and being unfair and being arrogant and being licorice for power, why persons continue to stay on that side. In the same way, when one compares that 98% of African Americans voted for Obama, it was an Obama moment yesterday.
Do you believe in moving forward? And some might say there should be no sort of witch hunting, there should be reconciliation. But in the spirit of all of that, do you think they should ignore or forget the fallen such as Crummy Wing and so on, Waddell and so on?
Oh no, definitely. Witch hunting presupposes that they are witches, and hunting means that one is going to triumph over another. You know, you're there to shoot and get rid of the fox if you're hunting. That is not the idea. The idea must be that persons must be held accountable in or out of office, or else the whole reason that the president is given immunity for acts in and out of office would tell you that one needs to be accountable for acts while you are in office. And that simply, Selwyn, one word for it is justice.
Justice.
Not with hunting, it's justice.
You mentioned immunity.
Crummy Wing must get justice.
You mentioned
those persons that Roger Khan killed must get justice.
Enrico, you mentioned immunity, you mentioned president. It has been said that during the campaign, the former president used inflammatory language that could have incited racial division and possibly a riot. What are your thoughts on that?
Without a doubt he did. Without a doubt he did. But this former president thinks he has this power. He has not really shed the power that he received when he became president. and he doesn't understand the need to come down from that pedestal in which he has put himself and which some persons have put him. And therefore, he goes about doing and causing the very political party that claims to be all these things that are good to be perceived as dark, evil, sinister, wicked, and untruthful. And that therein lies the problem, because the party is now perceived to be holding on to a race position that says that uses more than code words to describe others. And as long as you have a society in which you can create them and others, you are going to create tensions in the society. And a democratic society is not a society that one needs to create tensions for progress to happen. One needs to go land grabbing, as we're hearing reports of that happening now, and that one needs to engage in saying who's on top and who's on the bottom. It doesn't matter. Just let us have fun.
You think the electoral process, do you believe it needs to be fixed?
Oh, that presupposes that something is wrong with it.
Well, some are saying that something is wrong with it. That
the process, meaning what?
Well,
what do you mean by the process?
Well, the whole tabulation and releasing of the votes and so on. Some are saying.
Sure.
Okay.
For sure. If you mean that, then definitely we need to work on ensuring that we get a result sooner rather than later. And I'll tell you this, Selwyn, and I think everybody else knows this. One of the questions I asked the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission was, and I kept asking my staff to ask the People's Progressive Party, why is it, not why is it, do all of the statements of poll have the same numbers? Meaning, the People's Progressive Party, the the coalition, the Alliance for Change, APNU coalition, the Independent Party, the United Force, all of them had polling agents. By the evening of Monday, the election day, all of them would know by simple arithmetic whether or not they won the election. Okay? The People's Progressive Party started even before the election to make accusations about GCOM and what have you, which usually tells me that you're going to lose when you're picking up that position. But on the day itself, they must have known, based on their statements of poll, whether they were so far ahead that they would win the election, whether by 10, 20, or 20,000 votes. Clearly, they were not. And the final results show that. From the time they started to talk about 50 persons at each polling station and people intend to steal 10,000 votes and so on, I remember a detective who came to investigate a larceny, a burglary at an office I worked on, questioned everybody, and everybody could explain where they were when the burglary happened, when the door was broken into. The person the detective suspected and the person who it turned out who had done it was the only person to explain the situation from the point of view of the door. He tried to tell the detective, well, your door could have been rotten, and somebody could have leaned on the door and it fall in by itself. And while it fall in, some other person could have come and pick up the things and walk away with it. You know, when you're coming up with all sorts of reasoning as to why something could happen, it means that you do it. There is an old folk song, apparently a lot of people don't remember it. You know, Cookie, you not see nobody pass ya, no, my friend. Well, two of me dumpling gonna tell me that. Pretty dumpling gonna tell me that. You don't see nobody pass ya? Well, if you don't see nobody pass ya, me dumpling missing, then it's you thief it. So if the votes, if 10 or 50 people are going to be planted in a polling station and you talking about it, you are the one who started the fire. You are the one now coming with a hose. And they are, and our news will be carrying stories like these. They are credible and responsible reports where along areas from Enmore to Paradise to Chateau Margaux on the east coast of Demerara to Success, where persons were intimidated by others who had firearms. And in one case, a vehicle was rammed when one of the polling agents from the coalition attempted to leave with her statements of poll. And then all of a sudden, these fake statements of poll appeared. Because the whole idea was to plant fake statements of poll in there to confuse the process.
Was that so?
Oh, you mean was that so? Oh, you mean was that so? If you've been in power, and you watching and you're the magician,
Right.
you know how to do it better than anybody else. He who complains about it most knows how to do it best. And I'm not complaining about anything. I'm just pointing out what is happening in the society.
Excuse me.
Sorry if I'm putting it in a dumpling way, but that is the way it is.
Oh God, Enrico, what are some short-term changes you would like to see happen?
In the country,
Yes, in the country.
for one thing, I would like the drains to run.
The drains.
The drain, this country is on the sea level, right below sea level, and we have allowed all of most of our areas to be silted up from neglect. You come into Georgetown right now and you have to wear long boots. We are not the only country in the world that is on the sea level, that is below sea level. Amsterdam is below, the parts of the Netherlands is below sea level. And as a result, they have put things in place that would make for a habitable environment, with or without climate change in there. Venice is not necessarily below sea level, but Venice has its own peculiarities. In fact, the Guyana is very similar to Amsterdam and Venice, but they deal with flood control. We have not been able to do it because we have a serious problem. The other issue is education. You know, when the GCOM chairman in his own unique style described the dummification of Guyana in terms of how people understand things, it is not dissimilar. It is not different from what we have been saying for years. We have put reading and comprehension in two different categories. We read and we probably don't understand. So we have to deal with education and training. We have to deal with issues of poverty. Putting up big buildings, putting up fine hospitals and what have you, and fine schools mean absolutely nothing. If persons, when you go to the Marriott, somebody can tell you, baby, can hot up the food for you, can hot them up. It makes absolutely no sense. You know? Or when you go to the hospital, the nurse is not well trained or the doctor has so many things that he or she may be doing, or you don't get justice at the democratic institution you're at.
Race relations, race conversation. There seemed to be a desire for it throughout the diaspora. National conversation on race.
For sure, we need to have that national conversation on race, but I don't think it must overshadow the other issues that we need to deal with almost immediately, and that is ensuring that our environment is clean and protected, ensuring that we have proper education, proper training, ensure that people can enjoy a quality of life in this society that is comparable to, shall I call it, international standards. And I'm not sure that we are doing that. We can talk from now, as my mother used to say, to never every morning about how we look and what we look and where we came from. I always remember Louise Bennett's a poem, where persons were talking about going back to Africa. And she said, back to Africa, Miss Matty, you've got to come from somewhere first before you go back there. So say that, oh, we're from India, or we're from Africa, or we're from Portugal, or so on, you have to come from there first. But we were all born here.
Yes.
And therefore, because we were born here, our navel string buried here, we should have some commitment to here. We could live all other places, and we could live this dream that we are great and famous Africans, and that we are great and famous Indians, and we are great and famous Chinese, or Portuguese, or Amerindians, and so on. Look, the world likes to divide itself. No matter what we do, we will divide ourselves. When we play football and we can't find shorts to put on, we play shorts or no shorts. That's how we divide ourselves. and from the time children born, we divide them into colors, pink or blue. I am willing to ask anybody to do a social experiment that if you put blue colors in the crib for a girl, whether she will grow up to be a man. It's a nonsense.
Yeah. What surprised you? What surprised you about this? About the aftermath, after the election? What surprised you about the results?
What surprised me was the narrowness of the margin, because I really thought that persons understood that the society needed this catharsis. The society needed to have a change, simply because it's the ruling party at the time had been there for nearly 2 decades. And therefore, I really thought that more persons would have come out and made a statement. And I do believe that more persons came out and made a statement. Right?
Yes.
But it's how those persons were forced to vote by virtue of the intimidation. If the government with guns at the gate, right, of a polling station, hidden or otherwise, if you are from a community where it is essentially of one particular racial group, and you seem to have indicated even before that you would like to see change, chances are people will think that you're the one. So I think some people were intimidated by that, and were intimidated by the fear of a bogeyman past, a man long dead and gone, and policies that are obsolete, outdated, and were not relevant, and are not relevant to this day, age, and time. And it was so annoying to see that back then people didn't have cell phones. Cell phones didn't even weren't in widespread use then. To see issues of flour and dal and things like that, as if everybody were not affected by the restrictions back then on flour. And I'm talking 30 years ago. I've had 2 grown children since then. It's a nonsense.
What kind of information or telecommunication policy changes you would like to see in Guyana?
Oh, first you have to have a policy.
Ah.
So the first thing I would like to see is that we have a national plan for telecommunications and national telecommunication policy in which investors can come into the society or from the society can look at what we have in Guyana and what is available and make investments in the society. I strongly believe with the coming of digital technology and digital TV and radio and what have you, there is adequate space for us to speak with and to people in various parts of the world, in various parts of the country and in various parts of the world. So we must have that ability to do that. We must be able to have 4G. I should not have to do what I'm doing with you, going through pains of wondering whether I'm going to lose connection and what have you. So telecommunication policy is very important,
Yes.
particularly because that is where the world is going. That is the economic frontier right now, and that is the frontier of the future.
Go to the chat room. Michelle asked, how can we of the diaspora help facilitate the change process from abroad?
One of the ways that the diaspora can help is to inventorize all the skill sets that they have. You know how many bright people we have out there?
Very
And
true.
people who, seriously, Selwyn, people who are trained and have experience in 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 various areas that this country needs. What we also have out there is a pomposity that, look, I living abroad, so I know better than most people. Therefore, what we have to do is to pull together the skill sets from the diaspora with the skill sets that are home and mold those sets to make the country have that destiny that it should have had several years ago. But because of the various issues that we've already discussed, we are not there just yet. So one of the ways the diaspora can help is to indicate what skills that they have, that they could impart those skills to Guyana and deal and become involved with the development and progress that the society so desperately needs at this time. And as I said, if we have a good telecommunication policy, then some of those in the diaspora do not even have to leave there. They do not have to relocate. They could do it online.
Enrico, you were around for the 2011 elections, and I'm sure you've covered it. You've covered this one. Do you believe, from your observation, that there was more involvement by the diaspora, more of a sort of national pride, improvement in national pride occurring in the diaspora than in 2011?
Oh, definitely. There were lots of people who were engaged in the process, and they were engaged from both sides. In terms, I'm talking about the major parties. But what told me, and everybody likes to think, oh well, the diaspora people don't vote. What told me that the coalition had, as Guyanese would say, edge or an advantage,
Yes.
was I went to Toronto to cover a coalition event. And I had to wake up at around 5 o'clock to go to a breakfast that was due to start at 7. Now, Selwyn, if you know Guyanese, no Caribbean people. On a Sunday morning in Toronto, in New York, in Atlanta, in Chicago, wherever they're living, they ain't getting up at no 5 o'clock to go to no breakfast. Right?
Yeah.
They can ask why the breakfast can't be held at, why it can't be a brunch. But I saw that, as my mother would say, with my own two eyes, where when we got there, meaning the media and the other organizers who were there, the media tends to get there early to recce the place and so on. By 6:30, people had already arrived, and they clearly traveled not from across the street. The metropolitan countries.
Yes.
You don't come across the street. You got to drive nearly half an hour at the least in some of those countries, or travel half an hour on the train to get there. And people were there at 6:30. By 6:45, the place was half full.
What?
And even if you say, well, the place was only able to accommodate 150 people, to get 2 people to come out at 7 o'clock in the morning in Toronto, or in New York, or in Albany, or in Syracuse, or in Schenectady on a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning would be surprising. Unless they're going to pick up somebody at the airport. So clearly, people were engaged.
Yeah.
The diaspora was engaged. And the diaspora was concerned. And I think the diaspora was concerned because when things go bad in Guyana, persons reach out to the United States,
Yeah.
to Canada, to England, to Antigua and all the other places where Guyanese are, Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados and Suriname and Venezuela, and say, look, send a little small piece, things ain't going too bright.
Yes.
And, that puts a strain, as much as they may not want to say. That puts a strain because you end up supporting 3 and 4 families. Your family in the country in which you're domiciled, and your family at home, and then got to help out this person and help out that person. So the remittances, while important, tell you that the country has certain issues that we need to deal with expeditiously.
Enrico, we have to close in as a wonderful point to close on. I want to thank you again, my brother, for joining us this evening. And you have to come again. I don't know when again you're going to be up in the United States, in New York, but I'm looking forward to chatting with you again. Always very informative. Thank you so much, my brother.
No problem at all. Thanks a lot, Selvin.
You're welcome.